The house was big enough, so they decided my sister-in-law should live there. A $3 million wedding gift for my parents. I came home from my honeymoon to find my mother-in-law had already changed the locks. The day I returned to my own home after a week-long honeymoon, I finally understood what it meant to marry into the wrong family. In the span of just 10 minutes, I went from being the owner of a $3 million condo to an outsider in my own home. My mother-in-law was wearing my silk robe. My sister-in-law was trying on a lipstick I hadn't even opened. And my husband, he looked at me like I was a stranger. But they didn't know. Once I decided to stand up for myself, his entire family would pay the price for a single, seemingly harmless sentence. This place is huge. It's good to have family around to fill it up. That day, I was silent, paralyzed by shock. Today, I am silent because I am preparing to counterattack. This place is huge. Might as well let her stay. What's the big deal? The words scraped against my ears like a dull knife the moment the apartment door swung open. In my 30 years of life, I had never felt so violated. So quickly. A short, casual sentence. Yet it was powerful enough to shatter the dreamlike honeymoon that had ended just hours before, turning it all to dust. My name is Anna Hayes. I'm 30 years old, an interior designer, and I had just returned from 7 days of pure bliss in Maui with my new husband, Liam Miller. I thought my life was stepping into its most romantic chapter. Who knew that the moment I rolled my suitcase to the front door, I would be walking straight into an episode of a toxic family drama. I placed my thumb on the fingerprint scanner, just as I always did. The indicator light flashed red, repeatedly. The second time, the third time a cold, mechanical warning beep sounded. I froze. Liam was standing behind me. I could hear him swallow nervously, then force a laugh. Probably just a technical glitch, honey. Let me call security. But his face was pale. Before he could call anyone, the distinct sound of a deadbolt turning echoed from inside. The heavy wooden door was pulled open, and I was rooted to the spot. There, framed in the doorway, as if she'd owned the place for decades, was Brenda, my mother-in-law. She wasn't wearing the worn-out house dresses I was used to seeing on my visits to their small home in Queens. Instead, she was in a cream-colored silk robe, the very robe I had ordered online and hadn't even had a chance to wear. It was still hanging in my closet when I left. Now, it was wrapped snugly around her plump figure. She casually lifted a glass of orange juice to her lips, taking a sip as if she were hosting a guest. She squinted, looking me up and down, then tilted her chin. So, you're back. Honeymoon was fun, I bet. Left this old woman to watch the house until my back nearly broke. Before I could speak, a young woman emerged from my bedroom behind her, her hair in a messy bun, holding my Dyson Supersonic hairdryer. My Dyson. I had waited on a backorder list for a month to get it. She shrugged and smiled brightly. Oh, hey, Anna, you're back. I just borrowed this for a sec, okay? This thing is amazing, works like a dream. It was my sister-in-law, Tiffany, 23 years old, unemployed, and whose only hobby was taking selfies to post on Instagram for a life she didn't have. I felt my heart plummet to my stomach. My home, my locks, my belongings, all of it had been turned into their communal property, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Liam stood next to me, utterly silent. I turned to him. Liam, there must be some misunderstanding. His eyes darted away, like a man who had accidentally broken a vase, not one who was an accomplice in this monstrous betrayal. Gathering what little composure I had left, I asked, articulating each word carefully, who changed the locks to my apartment? Brenda let out a short, contemptuous laugh. This place is in Liam's name too. I'm his mother. I changed the locks. So what? This place is huge. Might as well let her stay. What's the big deal? That sentence, the one that started this story, had now become a declaration of war. I scanned the apartment. My cream-colored Italian sofa was draped with a hideous, brightly colored floral throw blanket. The glass coffee table was littered with Cheeto dust and empty sunflower seed shells. The TV was blaring some obnoxious reality show at full volume. A large pot of what smelled like greasy stew sat on my marble dining table. The stench of stale fried oil, cheap plug-in air fresheners, and discount fabric softener mingled into a nauseating concoction that made me want to gag. This was no longer the sanctuary I had meticulously designed. This was a battlefield. I took a step forward, my voice still trembling, but clear enough. Brenda, this is our private home. My parents bought this for me. I never agreed to have you and Tiffany move in. Changing the locks and using my things without asking is an invasion of my privacy. Brenda slammed her glass down on the table with a loud clank and put her hands on her hips. Oh, listen to her. The little princess is giving orders now. You marry into this family. You follow this family's ways. The deed has Liam's name on it, so it's his house. And what's his is mine. You're just the new wife. Don't get ahead of yourself. Tiffany chimed in from behind her. She's right, you know. I'm just here helping Mom clean up for you guys. Why are you being so dramatic? Clean up? I looked at the pigsty that was once my living room and couldn't even manage a bitter laugh. I turned to Liam. You think this is normal? Liam fidgeted with the hem of his shirt, his eyes refusing to meet mine. Don't make a scene, Anna. They're family. That sentence was like gasoline on the fire in my heart. Our family. But it seemed that in the word hour, there was no me. I walked straight up to my mother-in-law, looking directly into her cold, sharp eyes. I am asking you and Tiffany to leave my house. Right now. In that instant, Brenda's face changed. She poked her finger into my forehead. You ungrateful little witch. You dare to kick your mother-in-law out? If you want to be a wife in this family, you learn some respect. If you can't, then get out. I swatted her hand away, my heart feeling like it would burst from my chest with rage. The entire 20th floor hallway was dead silent, save for the hum of the central air and the frantic pounding of my own heart. And then, something unexpected happened. A neighbor stepped out of the condo next door. It was Maria, the woman I had helped fix a broken kitchen cabinet for. She saw the scene before her and frowned. What's going on, Anna? I saw these two hauling in bags of stuff 3 days ago. They were bragging to everyone that their daughter-in-law was away, so they were moving in to enjoy the high life. Brenda spun around and shrieked. Who are you to butt into my family's business? Maria wasn't intimidated. She crossed her arms and leaned against her doorframe. I'm someone who's lived here a long time, and I know nobody in this building appreciates being disturbed by uninvited guests. I looked at Maria, and for the first time, I felt I wasn't completely alone. Seeing the situation escalating, Liam tried to de-escalate. Okay, everyone, let's just calm down. But nobody was calming down. Because, at that moment, I saw something that made me lose control completely. My backup wedding ring. The simple band I kept in my jewelry box in the bedroom closet. It was now on Tiffany's finger. She was twisting it around, admiring it. Wow, Anna, this fits me perfectly. Just try it on for a bit, okay? A chill ran down my spine. Tiffany, take that ring off. She pouted. It's just a ring. What's the big deal? Something snapped inside my head. I strode forward and snatched the ring from her hand, causing her to stumble back. And that was the moment everything shattered. Brenda screamed, You disrespectful brat. But I couldn't hear her anymore. I could only hear my own heart and the voice of reason inside me saying, crystal clear. This war began the moment you came home. And I thought to myself, if I don't stand up straight today, I will spend the rest of my life living under their feet. I just didn't know that this was only the first tremor. The real earthquake was still to come. The moment I snatched the wedding ring from Tiffany's hand, a forgotten part of my memory was ripped open. A deeper, more painful memory flooded back without warning. They say that when you're on the verge of breaking, the past becomes a mirror, showing you exactly where you went wrong. And right then, I realized I'd been wrong for a very, very long time. Wrong from the day I agreed to date Liam Miller. I was 26 back then, young, confident, and romantic. I met Liam at a business conference. He was a junior marketing associate, always impeccably dressed, with an easy smile and a way of speaking so smoothly that every word felt coated in honey. Liam wasn't movie star handsome, but he possessed a quality that men from humble backgrounds often perfect, an air of diligence, a knack for flattery, an ability to listen, and the skill to play the part of a perfect gentleman. He insisted on driving me home after the conference. I refused 3 times, but on the 4th, I relented. Maybe it was his persistence, or maybe it was because I had just gotten out of a bad breakup and desperately needed someone to believe in. We started dating officially after 3 months. When my father found out, he was immediately against it. He looked at Liam with an indescribable expression, a mix of caution and the deep-seated suspicion of a man who had seen the world. My mother was softer, but still kept her distance. Liam's family consisted of just him, his mother, and his sister, living in a small, cramped house in Queens. His father had passed away when he was young. Brenda made a living selling second-hand clothes at a flea market. while Tiffany spent most of her days at home, scrolling on her phone and complaining about everything. The first time I brought Liam home to meet my parents, my father sat with him for less than 5 minutes before calling me into the kitchen. He said bluntly, "Anna, that boy has hungry eyes. Be careful." I immediately defended him. "Dad, Liam isn't like that at all. He's a good person." My father's sigh hid. "Good? I've been reading people my whole life. Men who are overly sweet, who look at everything with desire, but pretend to be humble. They're never simple. He hasn't stopped staring at our house since he walked through the door." I argued back. "You're too cynical, Dad. You're suspicious of everyone. Liam isn't like that." My father fell silent, then said just one more thing. "Just think about it, honey. Is he with you for you, or for what we have?" But I was in love, and love is blind. All I saw was Liam doting on me, picking me up and dropping me off, buying me small gifts even though his salary was modest. He told me about his dream of starting his own marketing firm, of wanting to provide a better life for his mother and sister. I listened, my heart filled with sympathy, and considered myself lucky to have found a man who cared so much for his family. I had no idea that I wasn't a part of those dreams. Only my house and the wealth that surrounded it were. We planned our wedding after 2 years of dating. That's when my parents gifted me the $3 million condo as a wedding present. When Liam heard the news, he hugged me, his body trembling with what I thought was overwhelming emotion. His mother grinned from ear to ear. Tiffany even blurted out, "Wow, a place like that, you wouldn't even need to work." I heard her, but I pretended not to. When it came time to sign the deed, my father insisted it should be in my name only, as it was a gift specifically for me. But Liam said, "I don't want people to say I'm living off my wife. Please, let me put my name on the deed too. It will make me feel more responsible for our family." His words moved me to tears. My mother advised me to think carefully, but again, I was swayed by emotion. A woman in love often trusts the words that make her feel secure, not the warnings of her own rational mind. And so, I signed. I personally requested the developer to add Liam's name to the deed. When I told my father, he was silent for a long time before saying, "You're a grown woman, Anna. I can't stop you." But the look in his eyes that day scared me for the first time, of fear that I was betting my future on the wrong man. On our wedding day, my side of the family filled the grand ballroom. Liam's side consisted of only a handful of relatives. During the reception, I caught Brenda looking around the five-star venue, not with the joy of a mother seeing her son happily married, but with the calculating eyes of an appraiser. I'll never forget hearing her whisper to Tiffany, "See, marrying rich makes all the difference. One night here is worth years of us hustling at the market." I heard it, but I made excuses for her. "She's just old," she says silly things. I'm overthinking it. Wrong. I was wrong from that moment on. Once, I accidentally saw a text exchange between Liam and a friend. The friend asked, "Scored big with the in-laws, huh?" Liam replied, "Yeah, taking it one step at a time. Just happy I can finally take care of my mom and Tiff." At the time, I thought he was just trying to sound manly to his friend. I trusted him so much that I ignored all the glaring red flags. Because he was gentle, because he took care of me when I was most vulnerable, because he made me feel protected. I clung to those feelings and forgot that love isn't sweet words, but consistent actions. If I had been more clear-headed, I would have seen that the financial disparity wasn't the problem, their greed was. But I realized everything far too late. It wasn't until I stepped into my $3 million home after my honeymoon and heard the words, "This place is huge. Might as well let her stay. What's the big deal?" that I knew I had turned my sanctuary into a feast for them to devour. Who could I blame? It all started with my own naive kindness. And that was a painful lesson for which I would have to pay for a long time to come. After the initial shock of returning home, I began to realize I wasn't just dealing with a spontaneous incident, but a well-prepared trio. Each of them played a clear role. Their actions synchronized so perfectly it was terrifying. It's just that, blinded by love, I had overlooked too much. And now that the truth was exposed, their true natures were peeling back, layer by layer. First, there was Brenda, my mother-in-law. The first time I met her, I thought she was a hard-working, resilient woman who had struggled to raise 2 children on her own. She was a master at telling sob stories, recounting them in a way that made my heart ache. She talked about how, after her husband passed, she had to single-handedly raise her kids, which made her a bit rough around the edges but fiercely protective. I listened, I believed, and I genuinely felt for her. But looking back, I see that the quiver in her voice wasn't emotion. It was a honed skill. Because after every tale of hardship, she would skillfully weave in a line like, "Now that I'll have a daughter-in-law, all I hope for is to lean on my children a little. I'm getting too old to manage on my own." At the time, I naively said, "Of course, Brenda. If you ever need anything, just let me know." I never imagined that was the key that would unlock the door to today's disaster. Her bitterness wasn't overt. It seeped in slowly, like a leak in a wall. Once, I bought her a new silk blouse. She held it up, looked it over, and said, "Wow, this is beautiful. Must have cost a pretty penny. A rich daughter-in-law. What a difference." I thought she was joking. Now I understand she was testing the depth of my family's pockets. Then there was Tiffany, my sister-in-law. 23, unemployed, but always craving designer labels. I remember one time I was heading out with a new handbag. She eyed me from head to toe and asked, "Where'd you get that? Can I borrow it sometime to take some pictures?" The question was simple, but the way her eyes latched onto the bag was like she was mentally claiming temporary ownership. She lived without a schedule, without rules, with messy habits, yet she spoke as if the entire world owed her its satisfaction. Tiffany's dependency wasn't born from circumstance, but from the knowledge that one complaint was all it took for her mother to leap to her defense. When I first joined the family, I tried to help her find a job, even fixed up her resume. But she just said, "Job hunting is so exhausting these days. Besides, I'm looking for a place with the right vibe." I never understood what vibe she was looking for. Probably one where she didn't have to work but still got paid. And then there was Liam, my husband. If I had to describe him in one word, it would be pliable. He was gentle, quiet, and agreeable. But if you looked closely, you could see the cracks in that gentleness. It didn't come from his nature, but from a habit of avoidance. Liam hated confrontation. He didn't like to upset anyone, especially his mother and sister. If there was a conflict between me and his family, he would either remain silent or say something neutral. But too much silence becomes complicity, and I didn't realize that soon enough. Once, Tiffany and I had a small argument because she used my expensive skincare products without asking. I spoke to her gently, but she threw a fit. "I just used a little. What's the big deal?" I looked to Liam for support, but all he said was, "Just let it go, Anna. It's not a big deal." And Tiffany shot me a triumphant, challenging look. That was the first time I felt the boundaries in our home shift in their favor. And so today, when all three of them stood against me, I realized they weren't just on the same side. They were a team, acting with a practice synergy. But luckily for me, not everyone in this building was fooled by them. Maria, the neighbor I only knew casually from helping her fix a cabinet a few months ago, turned out to be my most important witness. She lived on the floor below me, was straightforward, and worked as a seamstress from home. She had witnessed the entire spectacle of Brenda and Tiffany hauling their belongings into my apartment 3 days before I returned. She even recounted how they told the doorman they had a key and were family, so no one questioned them. It was only when she saw them bringing up pots and pans that she grew suspicious. I looked at her and saw genuine indignation in her eyes on my behalf. Having a witness was a blessing. If it were just my word against theirs, no one would believe I wasn't just making it up. And then there was Chloe, my best friend of 10 years. She was the only one who had always warned me to be careful with Liam. Every time I told her a story about his mother, his sister, or some small but suspicious incident, she would say, "I'm telling you, Anna, a guy like Liam is easily controlled. Be careful, or one day you'll be the one cleaning up the mess." I used to argue with her, call her cynical. Now, I see she wasn't cynical. She was just clear-eyed. Chloe even told me something I didn't believe at the time. She said she once overheard Liam telling a friend that marrying me would make his life easier, and his mom and sister wouldn't have to struggle anymore. She knew right then that he wasn't as simple as he seemed. But I was still invested in the beautiful version of him I had created in my own mind. The truth is, their arrival wasn't an accident. It was planned. They knew my honeymoon schedule. They knew when I would be back. They knew the apartment would be empty, and they knew I would never suspect a thing. They moved their things in 3 days before I returned. They changed the locks. They brought pots, pans, blankets, clothes, and an attitude of entitlement, ready to occupy the space. As if this home was a prize they were naturally entitled to. And there I stood, facing 3 people with 3 different personalities but one common goal, to take over my life, piece by piece. It was only then that I understood the full picture. I hadn't just come home from a honeymoon. I had walked into a chess game they had set up long ago. I just didn't know that this game had far more treacherous moves to come, and that each of them had darker sides I had yet to imagine. The air in my $3 million condo was as thick and foul as if someone had dumped a bucket of sewage in the middle of the living room. The feeling of being the homeowner yet having to stand meekly by the door, watching my cherished belongings being used so brazenly by others, made my chest tighten with a rage that made me tremble. I had to maneuver my suitcase around a minefield of snack wrappers, candy bags, used tissues, and open makeup compacts scattered across the floor. It looked more like a chaotic college dorm room than the meticulously designed apartment I had created. My cream-colored Italian sofa, which I had carefully covered before I left, now had a long, ugly orange juice stain. The scent of my luxury perfume was lost in a sickening blend of fried food and cheap, overpowering fabric softener. One of my high heels lay abandoned in the middle of the room, a chunk of the heel broken off. I knew instantly that Tiffany had worn them, probably for a few photos to post online. My entire Korean skincare set, which I had bought just before my honeymoon, had been opened. The serum bottle was nearly empty. The classic red lipstick I had saved for a special gallery opening was now in Tiffany's hand, twisted all the way up as if she was trying to scrape out the last bit. I tried to swallow the anger rising in my throat. My father's words echoed in my mind. The angrier you get, the more you lose. I took a deep breath. Brenda, I think you should have told me before you brought people into our home. My things have all been used. I expect a little respect for my boundaries. Brenda didn't even turn around. She was busy inspecting one of my Chanel handbags, her lips curled in a sneer. Goodness, all these things are so expensive. When you marry into a family, everything becomes shared property. This place is huge, so we let your sister-in-law stay. It's not like any of this belongs to you alone, so why be so possessive? I felt a vain throb in my temple. I tried to keep my voice gentle. Brenda, I'm not trying to be selfish, but I want to be the one who decides what happens to my own things. Tiffany ran out from the bedroom, holding a bottle of my body wash, her voice shrill. God, you're so weird. It's just sitting here. So, of course people are going to use it. This stuff smells amazing, by the way. Where did you get it? Take me with you next time. She was completely oblivious to the fact that she was treating my personal items like free samples at a department store. I then saw her holding up one of my silk blouses, a piece I treasured, inspecting the size tag as if she were about to try it on. I repeated myself, more firmly this time. Tiffany, put my things down. She shot me a look as sharp as a knife. Why are you so uptight? You act like your stuff is made of gold. I clenched my fists but tried to maintain my composure. Brenda, I really do not approve of you changing the locks without my permission. This house may have Liam's name on it, but my parents bought it for me. You should have asked me first. Brenda spun around, hands on her hips. Ask you what? I'm his mother, and he's your husband. In this house, his word is final. He gave me the okay, so I did it. It's better for you to be polite. Don't you dare try to lecture me. I looked at Liam. He stood there, hands in his pockets, his face tense, but he said nothing. I needed him to speak up. I needed him to prove that I wasn't fighting his entire family alone. But he remained still, so still that a chill went through me. Liam, aren't you going to say something? I forced myself to ask. Liam glanced at his mother, then mumbled, Come on, Anna, don't be so aggressive. Mom was just trying to help us out. The house is too big for just the two of us anyway. It's convenient to have her and Tiffany here to look after the place. I let out a laugh, but it felt like someone was tearing a gash inside me. Look after the place? Is this disaster what you call looking after the place? I asked him. Is this helping? Liam avoided my gaze. I just want things to be peaceful. Don't make it hard for my mom. Make it hard? Those words twisted in my ear. I swallowed back my tears and said, as gently as I could, Brenda, I respect you, but this is my home. I need you to leave tonight so I can clean up. I don't want any more tension. Brenda scoffed. A new bride, already kicking out her mother-in-law. How wonderful. I raised Liam. I gave birth to him. And now you talk as if you're above me. She grabbed the new robe she was wearing, the one I had bought, and pulled the shoulder down slightly to show it off. Such nice things. It fits me perfectly. If you're just going to buy it and let it sit here, I might as well use it. Saves you money. That felt like a bucket of ice water thrown in my face. Then, as if to pour salt on the wound, Tiffany chimed in. And don't forget, you married into our family. This is Liam's house. Don't act like you're the queen of the castle. I turned to Liam. This time, I wasn't joking. You are letting your wife be insulted in her own home. You don't see a problem with that?" He was silent for a long time, long enough for me to understand that he wasn't on my side. He was just afraid of losing face, of his mother being upset, of domestic chaos. He was afraid of everything except losing me. Before I could say more, Maria, my neighbor, unexpectedly stepped further into the doorway. Her voice was firm. "I'm sorry to interfere, but I've been standing out here and heard everything. It needs to be clear whose house this is. I've lived here for years, and I've never seen anyone move into their daughter-in-law's home like this. Just watching it makes me sick." Brenda turned on her, eyes blazing. "You are not part of this family. Mind your own business." Maria didn't flinch. "Anna hasn't said it, but I will. It looks to me like she's already put up with more than enough." I looked at her, a tiny spark of warmth igniting inside me. But that spark was instantly extinguished when Liam's expression darkened. He moved toward me, his voice angry in a way I had never heard before. "Anna, stop making a scene. My mother just wants to be close to us. What is the big deal that you have to be so hostile?" I looked straight into his eyes. "So, you choose to side with your mother, even when she's wrong?" He didn't answer, but his silence was the answer. In that moment, I understood that this conflict didn't start with a new lock or a stolen robe. It started the day I let them cross my boundaries without stopping them, and all three of them were pushing that boundary further and further. I just had no idea that this was only the beginning of their brazen invasion. What I had witnessed today was just the tip of the iceberg. The part submerged below was far more horrifying. I thought the scene with the changed locks and invaded property was the peak of their audacity. I was wrong. That was merely the opening act. After arguing back and forth with no resolution, Brenda suddenly sighed, put down her glass of orange juice, and said in a chillingly calm voice, "All right, let's be clear about this. This house needs to be reorganized. It's too chaotic when everyone thinks they're the boss." I whipped my head around to look at her. "Reorganized? What do you mean, Brenda?" She crossed her arms and casually pointed towards the master bedroom, the largest, most beautiful room in the condo. The room I had spent nearly 2 months designing, choosing every piece of furniture myself. "That room," she declared, "is for me and Tiffany. I'm getting old, my joints ache. I need a big bed and an en-suite bathroom. My daughter is used to a king-size bed too. You and Liam can move into the smaller guest room over there." I was stunned into silence. That room was where Liam and I had created our private sanctuary. I had picked out every curtain, every lamp, every rug to match our tastes. And now, with a single gesture, she was assigning sleeping quarters as if we were her servants. I tried to stay calm, but my voice trembled. "You can't be serious." Tiffany immediately chimed in, her tone suggesting she was afraid I didn't understand. "Of course, she's serious. I'm used to sleeping in a big room, and it's more convenient for my mom. You and Liam are young and healthy. You can sleep anywhere." I looked at her, so infuriated I could barely breathe. It was obvious. She and her mother had planned this from the beginning. This wasn't a spontaneous thought. It was a premeditated move. I turned to Liam. "Liam, did you hear what your mother just said? You think this is reasonable?" Liam bit his lip, his eyes refusing to meet mine. "Well, my mom is older, and she has trouble sleeping. The master bedroom is better soundproofed. We can just switch for a while. It's not a big deal. Why do you have to be so difficult?" I choked. For a while. Every hostile takeover in the world begins with those two words. I said slowly, deliberately, "Brenda, the master bedroom belongs to my husband and me. It's our private room. We cannot give it up." But Brenda cut me off. "You, be quiet. You're a rich girl who's used to getting her way. That's why you talk like that. When you're a daughter-in-law, you learn your place. You need to learn some humility. You can't be a princess forever." Her words sent a chill down my spine. That wasn't just a reprimand. It was a declaration of war. She was establishing my position in this household. I, the person who had contributed the entire value of this property, was being relegated to the lowest rung. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Brenda, I'm not a princess. I have never been disrespectful to you." She tossed her head. "Maybe not disrespectful, but you need to learn your place. It's a waste to leave a big room empty. It's only logical for me to take it. You and him moved to the small room. I took care of Liam his whole life. He never had it as good as he does with you. Now it's your turn to pay it back." Liam stood right there, hearing every word, but he didn't say a single thing to defend me. I looked at him, feeling as if I were looking at a complete stranger. He avoided my gaze, his hands clenched as if to hide his agreement with his mother. I asked him quietly, my voice tight, "Do you think she's right?" Liam stammered, I just want everyone to get along. Don't be so rigid, Anna." I shook my head and let out a bitter, silent laugh. So, in this marriage, I was the only one expected to get along. As long as his mother was happy, nothing else mattered. Maria, who hadn't left yet, stepped a little further in. "I have to say, Anna is the owner of this home. Why should she have to give everything up? This isn't a small thing. Nobody just moves into someone's house and starts claiming bedrooms like that." Brenda spun around, her eyes wide with fury. "You shut your mouth. You are not family. Don't you dare interfere." Maria didn't back down. "I may not be family, but I'm a neighbor, and I can't stand by and watch this young woman be bullied in her own home. Her parents bought this condo. I heard her say it loud and clear. You should know your place." But Liam immediately cut in, as if Maria had struck a nerve. "That's enough out of you. This is our family's business, not yours." And with that one sentence, he made his allegiance clear. He stood with his mother, not with me. I looked at him for a long time, searching his eyes for the man I had chosen to marry. The man who had once promised to protect me for the rest of my life. But the man standing before me now was silent when I was being cornered and only spoke up when his mother was challenged. That man had never truly been mine. Seeing my stunned silence, Brenda waved her hand dismissively, as if giving an order. "All right, get moving. Tonight, Tiffany and I will sleep in the master bedroom. You and Liam can take the small room. When I say it's okay, it's okay. When I don't, it's not." I stood there, my heart constricting as if caught in a vice. I was afraid I would cry, but no tears came. Instead, a different feeling washed over me, a cold, sharp clarity. It was the moment I realized that Brenda and her daughter hadn't just stumbled upon the idea of taking over my home. They had plotted it. They had planned it. They knew Liam wouldn't dare oppose them, and they were confident that I would, as always, be soft-hearted and yield. But they didn't know that every bit of patience has its limit, and I had just reached mine. I took a deep breath and looked straight at all three of them. I knew, from that moment on, the real battle had just begun. When the master bedroom door closed in my face with a dry, final click, it felt like it was slamming shut on the newlywed life I had just begun to dream of. I stood in the middle of the living room, my feet feeling as if they were rooted to the cold tile floor. My entire body was wound as tight as a guitar string, ready to snap at the slightest touch. I thought I would cry, but I didn't. No tears fell. There was only a heavy, suffocating feeling in my chest, threatening to either explode or implode. Liam had followed his mother and sister into the room. That closed door had instantly turned me into an outsider in my own home. I took a deep breath, but even the air felt thin and sharp. I looked around the condo my parents had spent $3 million on. Every wall, every chair, every corner of the kitchen I had designed with my own hands. Now, it all felt like it was turning against me. The newlywed home that was supposed to be warm and romantic, a place for my husband and me to laugh and share our lives, was now nothing more than a battlefield occupied by invaders. I bit my lip to keep from sobbing, but the more I suppressed it, the more the memories flooded back, crashing over me like giant waves in the night. I remembered my first few interactions with Brenda, the little comments that had made me uncomfortable, but that I had dismissed, thinking she was just an older woman who was a bit blunt. The first time I visited her home, she looked at the dinner I cooked and said, "Well, it's nice to see a rich girl who knows how to hold a frying pan." The time I bought her an expensive dress for Christmas, she held it up and pursed her lips. "This outfit would make people think I'm showing off at the flea market. I guess a fancy daughter-in-law wants her mother-in-law to stand out, huh?" The time I invited her to stay with us for a few days, she said sarcastically, "Feels strange to have to ask my daughter-in-law for permission to stay at my son's house, doesn't it?" Each time, I had just laughed it off, believing that if I was sincere, she would eventually come to love me. I even believed that one day she would accept me as her own daughter. Looking back now, those weren't just passing remarks. They were deliberate digs, each one chipping away at my spirit. I had made too many excuses for her to avoid seeing her true nature. I also remembered all the times Liam had gotten defensive when I mentioned something his mother said. Once, she said in front of me, "We may be poor, but at least we're clean. Not like some rich folks who live off their parents' money." I was hurt and later mentioned it to Liam quietly. "What your mom said really upset me." He had responded instantly, without hesitation. "She's old, Anna. Don't hold it against her. You're too sensitive. You let every little thing get to you. A little thing. Everything I brought up was always a little thing. It was only when this huge thing came crashing down on me that I realized all those little things were warnings of this very day. I sat down on the sofa, looking at the pair of slippers Tiffany had kicked off in the middle of the living room, and then at my brand new bath towel lying in a heap on the floor. Even the bottle of French perfume I had bought for myself just before the wedding was on the table, its cap off, its expensive scent mixing with the cheap shampoo Tiffany was using. I could hear Tiffany's giggles coming from the master bedroom. Her voice was shrill. "Mom, check this out. This memory foam pillow is incredible. It's the first time in my life I've slept on such a nice bed." Brenda's voice, full of smug satisfaction, replied, "Of course. This place is huge. We have to make use of it. No need to be stingy." Liam's voice, quieter but still audible, added, "If you and Tiff like it, just use whatever you want. Everything in this house is for all of us." I closed my eyes. A sharp pain spread from my heart through my entire chest. I finally understood. They weren't just taking a room. They were taking power. They were erasing my existence in this house, the very house I had provided. A choked sob escaped me, and I quickly covered my mouth. Suddenly, I was scared. Scared of the glaring truth. Scared of what I was facing. Scared that if I showed even a moment of weakness, they would crush me like the rug under their feet. I asked myself, how did I let it get to this point? Why did I trust Liam so much? Why did I think love was enough? I stood up and walked slowly to the balcony. The wind blowing in from the river was cool, but I felt like I was suffocating. My body trembled slightly. How long had I been walking down the wrong path without realizing it? I saw an image of myself 3 years ago. A naive girl who believed that if she was kind, everyone would be kind in return. A girl who believed the sweet words of a man who was an expert at hiding his true self. A girl who believed that love could soften the heart of a difficult mother-in-law. But now, I was standing alone, adrift. A woman pushed off her newlywed ship into icy cold water. I placed a hand on my chest, feeling my heart race as if it would beat its way out. Fear was rising, but behind the fear, a simmering rage was beginning to boil. I looked through the window of the master bedroom. The warm yellow light spilled out, casting the shadows of the three of them onto the floor. They were laughing and talking, even eating fruit at the vanity table I had bought with my bonus from last year's project. None of them were thinking about my feelings. None of them considered that I was standing here, in my own home, feeling like a stranger. In that moment, I knew one thing for certain. My trust was shattered into so many pieces it could never be put back together. And that very brokenness was the starting point for a different person inside me. An Anna Hayes who could no longer be so easily trampled. I took a deep breath. My heart still ached, but my vision was clearer. I knew one thing for sure. If I didn't stand up for myself right now, tomorrow I would be officially pushed out of my own life. And I swore. My patience had come to an end. I stood before the master bedroom door. My hands clenched so tightly, my knuckles turned white. The sound of their laughter echoed out, each chuckle a chisel carving the truth into my face. They were enjoying my home while I, the legal owner, stood outside like an unwelcome guest. I knew I couldn't stay silent any longer. I pushed the door open and walked in. All three of them turned to look at me, their expressions of annoyance unconcealed. I took a deep breath and spoke, enunciating every word. "Brenda, I want to settle this once and for all. I am demanding that you and Tiffany leave my house tonight. This is my and Liam's home. No one has the right to enter without permission, and certainly no one has the right to take over our room." Tiffany burst out laughing, a shrill sound that pricked my ears like a needle. "You sound so dramatic. Who do you think you are in this house? You're just the wife, honey, and the wife doesn't get a say." Her words were a direct slap in the face. All the suffering and renai I had endured over the past few days, all the accumulated patience, suddenly exploded. I walked right up to her. Tiffany stood with her arms crossed, her face a mask of defiance. She thought I would back down and be silent, just like before. But this time, I wasn't silent anymore. I spoke slowly, my voice as hard as steel. "Why don't you say that again? Who in this house doesn't have a say?" Tiffany scoffed. "You think talking loud is going to scare anyone? This house belongs to Liam. You're just his wife. My mom says one word, and you have to obey. You think you paid for it?" I looked her straight in the eye. "My parents bought this house for me. Remember that." Tiffany's expression flickered for a second, but she quickly masked it with a sarcastic tone. Oh, so now you're showing off your family's money? The rich girl's true colors are finally showing. Before I could respond, she turned her back, opened my closet, and started rummaging through my clothes as if she were shopping at a boutique. She pulled out a dress I had bought for an upcoming photo shoot, holding it up against herself in front of the mirror. This one's pretty. It probably looks better on me than you. I heard a distinct snap in my head, like the last thread of my restraint had been severed. I lunged forward and grabbed her wrist before she could pull the dress off the hanger. My grip was so tight that Tiffany yelped in surprise. Hey, what are you doing? Let go. I didn't let go. I stared at her, my voice low but every word crystal clear. You will not touch my things ever again. Seeing her daughter being restrained, Brenda rushed over, screaming as if she were the one being attacked. What kind of disrespectful daughter-in-law is this? Let go of her. But for the first time since I'd come home, I didn't back down. I turned to Brenda, still holding Tiffany's wrist. Call me disrespectful if you want, but right now, you and Tiffany must leave this house. Tiffany struggled, pushing me hard. Are you crazy? Who do you think you are? You just married Liam. You didn't marry this house. Her words were meant to break me, but instead, they made me more clear-headed than ever. I released her hand but continued to stand between them in my closet. I had once thought that yielding was the best option, but now I understood that yielding to people who have no decency only encourages them to walk all over you. Liam finally ran over, his voice filled with frustration. Anna, you're taking this too far. I turned to him, a coldness spreading through me. He wasn't looking at me with the eyes of a husband wanting to protect his wife, but with the eyes of a son terrified his mother might be hurt. He continued, his voice impatient. Tiffany accidentally touched your stuff. What's the big deal? You're a grown woman acting like a child. I stared at him for a long time, my heart aching so much I had to consciously control my breathing. You really don't see the problem? You don't see that your mother taking over my room, changing my locks, and using my things is wrong? He avoided my eyes. Just stop arguing. My mom has made up her mind. If you're going to live with us, you need to get along. Get along? I let out a silent, bitter laugh. From the beginning, I was the one being cornered, insulted, and displaced, while they sat back and laughed. And Liam called that getting along? I took a step forward. If you won't protect your wife, then I will protect myself. Brenda interjected, her shrill voice cutting through the air. I'll tell you what, you spoiled little rich girl. You have no voice in this house. You came here, so you follow my rules. I looked at her, my gaze sharper than I ever thought it could be. You have no right to make rules in my house. The room fell silent for a moment. Tiffany's eyes were wide. Liam was speechless. Brenda's jaw dropped, and then she shrieked. This girl is out of control. But I didn't take back my words. I was no longer the woman cowering by the door. I had fought back for the first time. This wasn't the last straw. This was the flood they had created themselves. I repeated one last time, my voice firm. Tonight, you and Tiffany must leave my house. I will not compromise anymore. A tense silence stretched out. Then Liam spoke, his voice filled with anger. Anna, you're putting me in an impossible position. I turned to him, no longer trembling. If you think me defending my own rights is putting you in an impossible position, then perhaps we were wrong from the very beginning. The three of them stood there, stunned by my transformation. They never expected the person they thought would always bow her head to stand up so tall. But I knew this was only the first step. They wouldn't back down, and I no longer had any ground to retreat to. The moment I finished my demand for them to leave, Brenda shot up as if she'd been zapped with electricity. She jabbed a finger in my face, her voice shrieking through the condo. Everyone, come and see the modern-day daughter-in-law. So disrespectful, she's kicking her own mother-in-law out. Oh, heaven help me. I raised my son all these years just for him to bring this monster home to torture me? Her voice was so piercing that doors down the hall began to crack open, neighbors peeking out to see the commotion. I could hear the shuffle of slippers in the hallway, but no one dared to come close. They just watched and whispered. I tried to remain calm. Brenda, I just want some respect. This is my home. I have the right to say who stays here. Brenda didn't let me finish. She rushed forward and shoved my shoulder. A daughter-in-law demanding rights? I'm standing right here, alive and well, and you're trying to throw me out? The push wasn't hard, but it was enough to make me stumble for a second. Tiffany stood behind her, gloating. See, you brought this on yourself. I clenched my fists, but before I could react, Liam stepped forward. I thought he would stand between me and his mother, but he didn't. He turned to me, his face red with anger. Can you please stop being so selfish? My mother can stay here. What's the big deal that you have to make such a scene? I felt a sharp, stabbing pain in my heart. Liam hadn't seen me get pushed, hadn't seen me being insulted. He only saw his mother. In his eyes, I was the thorn that needed to be removed. I tried to keep my voice steady. Selfish? You call me selfish when your mother changes my locks, takes over my room, and uses all my things? Liam slammed his hand on a table. The problem is you're too uptight, Anna. Everything my mom does, you scrutinize. She's an elder. You have to learn to give in. You can't keep cornering her like this. I stared at him for a long time. The man I had once trusted, the man I thought I could rely on, was now siding with his mother and sister without a second thought for me. He didn't need logic. He just needed me to be silent. Seeing her son defend her, Brenda became even more emboldened. She crossed her arms and sneered. Did you hear that, Anna? This house belongs to Liam, and what's his, I'll look after. I'll keep this $3 million house nice and clean so my daughter has a decent place to live. I could hardly believe my ears. She said it as if she had contributed the money to buy it. She tilted her chin and continued. And what do you have? This house was a gift from your parents. You brought it into this marriage, so it's community property now. Don't you dare think you're above me. Her words were like hammer blows. I felt every breath become heavy. I took a step forward, my voice trembling but firm. You have no right to look after my house. This was a gift from my parents to me. I never agreed to let you stay long-term, let alone take over a room. Tiffany laughed. Oh my God. Do you still think this is your private property? The deed is in both of your names. Half of this house belongs to Liam, you know. You have no right to kick anyone out. Liam was silent, and that silence hurt more than any words. I turned to him. Did you hear that? I'm being insulted. My things are being touched. My room has been taken. Are you not going to say anything? Liam sighed, avoiding my gaze. I just want us to live in peace. My mom doesn't mean any harm. Please, don't make a big deal out of it. At that moment, I truly wanted to cry. Not from pain, but from helplessness. I whispered, my voice choked with emotion. I'm not making a big deal out of it. I just want to be respected. How can this be my home if I don't even have a say in it? Brenda cut in, her voice sharp as a knife's edge. You're right about one thing. This isn't your house. It's Liam's house. He's letting you stay here out of charity, so you should learn your place and be grateful. Don't you open your mouth to demand rights. I froze. I had heard many cruel words in my life, but none had ever hurt like that. My house. And she said I was living here on charity. A price paid with all my trust and sacrifice, only to be told that. My hands went cold, and a low ringing started in my ears. I stood in the middle of the living room, the three of them forming a giant wall before me, while I was just one person, alone on my side of the battle line. I realized I wasn't just being counterattacked. I was being driven into a corner. None of them saw me as family, as a wife, as a daughter-in-law, or as the owner of this home. I was just an obstacle in their plan. I wanted to speak, to say something to turn the tables, but my throat was tight, and emotions swirled inside me, threatening to swallow me whole. At that moment, I had only one thought. I have to be strong. I cannot break. I cannot let them walk all over me like this. But just as I was trying to figure out my next move, an unexpected event occurred, pulling me into an even more terrible vortex. A vortex I was completely unprepared to face. After the suffocating argument with the three of them, I retreated to the small guest room Liam had called temporary. The room was essentially a storage closet, with dust still settled on the bookshelf. The window wasn't soundproof, and a draft made my skin prickle. I sat on the edge of the bed, picking at the bedsheet until my nail chipped. I was exhausted, as if all the blood had been drained from my body. But in that chaotic mess, I still had one person to call. The only person I could truly rely on. My father. I dialed his number. The moment I heard his voice, I couldn't hold it in anymore. Dad, I'm so tired. My father's voice deepened as he tried to remain calm. What happened? You just got home. What's wrong? I told him everything. The changed locks, the used belongings, the stolen room, the insults, being told I was living on charity. I could hear his breathing grow heavier, but he didn't interrupt. He let me finish. When I finally choked up, he spoke slowly. I told you from the beginning, Anna. That man was not someone you could entrust your life to. I clutched the phone. I know, Dad. But I never imagined they would go this far. My father was silent for a few seconds. Then he asked a question that I didn't understand at first. Do you still have the envelope I gave you before the wedding? I frowned. What envelope? He sighed, not with fatigue, but with the weariness of someone who had foreseen this long ago. The envelope I gave you. I told you to keep it in your personal safe. Do you remember? I shot up from the bed as if an electric current had passed through me. I remembered. A week before the wedding, my father had given me a sealed envelope and told me to put it away somewhere safe. He didn't say what it was, only that I should open it if I ever needed to. I was so busy with wedding preparations at the time, and I thought he was just being overly cautious, so I didn't pay it much mind. Now, I opened my safe, rummaged around, and found it right under my jewelry box. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a stack of official-looking documents, still crisp with the notary's seal. The moment I read the first line, my heart began to pound against my ribs. Separate property agreement. I gasped and read on. Party A, Liam Miller, and Party B, the family of Arthur and Helen Hayes, hereby acknowledge that the property, a condominium unit valued at $3 million, provided by Party B to their daughter, Anna Hayes, is her sole and separate property, and is not subject to ownership claims or division by Party A under any circumstances. I sank onto the bed, stunned. My father's voice continued over the phone, as steady and strong as steel. I knew that boy wasn't simple. He didn't come to you just for you. I've seen men like him before. The day you decided to marry him, I prepared for this. If he had turned out to be a good man, this document would have never been needed. But if he was shameless, then this would be your protection. I opened the second document in the envelope. It was a promissory note, clearly written. I, Liam Miller, have borrowed the sum of $30,000 from Arthur Hayes for wedding-related expenses. I commit to repaying the full amount should the marriage dissolve, due to acts of disrespect, appropriation of assets, or irreconcilable conflict. I covered my mouth with my hand. This was something I had never expected. My father had been preparing an escape route for me all along. While I was blindly trusting someone, he had seen what I couldn't. My voice trembled. Dad? Why didn't you tell me? He sighed softly. If I had told you then, you would have thought I was looking down on Liam. You loved him. You would have defended him. I didn't want to create a rift between you and your husband. I just wanted to protect you. Because I know you always believe the best in people. I bit my lip, tears falling onto the back of my hand. Not tears of sadness, but of overwhelming gratitude for having someone who loved me unconditionally. My father continued, his voice growing sharper. Now, listen to me carefully. What happened today was not an accident. It was their plan. If you need to, give all these documents to our lawyer, David Kwan. I've already briefed him. Just call him, and he'll handle everything. I felt a surge of strength, as if I'd been given a transfusion. A dormant fire inside me roared to life. I looked at the papers in my hand, each word glowing like a beacon in the darkness. They thought they could take this house? My mother-in-law thought because Liam's name was on the deed she could control me? Liam thought he held all the cards because I loved him? No. They were all wrong. I, Anna Hayes, had not walked into this marriage empty-handed. I had my family, my intelligence, and a shield my father had quietly placed behind me long ago. I held the documents tightly, a feeling I had never experienced before rising within me. The feeling that I could fight back. This was no longer a battle I had to endure. This would be the battle where I turned the tables. And the three of them would never have guessed that the person they underestimated the most held the very thing that could make their entire scheme collapse in an instant. I had prepared myself mentally after discovering the legal shield my father had left for me. But before I could make my move, Liam's family struck first, using a dirty tactic I never thought they would stoop to: weaponizing health. That afternoon, as I was walking to my car after work, my phone started buzzing incessantly. Call after call. The same name flashed on the screen. Liam. I didn't want to answer. My heart was cold as ice. But by the seventh call, I heard my best friend Chloe's worried voice beside me. Anna, you should probably pick up. What if it's a real emergency? I answered. On the other end was a series of ragged breaths, then Liam's voice, frantic in a way that sounded unnatural. Anna, it's Mom. She had a stroke. She's in the ER at Mercy General. You have to come right now. She keeps asking for you. I froze. The word stroke hit me like a lightning bolt. No matter how angry I was at them, I wasn't the kind of person who could ignore a medical emergency, especially involving an elder. I asked quickly, where are you? Emergency. Room 3. Please. Anna, I'm begging you. I only had time to send a quick text to my dad before jumping in a cab. The hospital was chaotic. The cold, white fluorescent lights making my anxiety worse. I found my way to emergency room 3. Outside, Tiffany was sobbing dramatically, her face buried in her hands. Brenda was being wheeled out on a gurney, her eyes closed. Anyone seeing that scene would have believed it. I rushed over. What happened? What did the doctors say? Tiffany looked up at me, her crying intensifying. You have the nerve to ask? Her left side is paralyzed. Her mouth is drooping. It's probably because she was so upset with you that this happened. I heard the accusation, but forced myself to ignore it. Liam was standing by the gurney, his face a mask of grief. Anna, you're here. I nodded. Let's get her to a room. But just as the nurse wheeled the gurney away, the door to an adjacent room creaked open slightly. I accidentally overheard a voice from inside, a very familiar voice. It was Tiffany, whispering. But in the quiet hallway, her words reached me as clearly as a bell. Mom, when she gets here, remember to droop your mouth to the side, okay? Make it look real. I stopped dead in my tracks, a chill snaking up my spine. Another voice replied, and it was unmistakably Brenda's. I know. Let me practice. Should I droop the left side or the right? I was paralyzed. I crept closer to the door and peered through the crack. The scene inside made my blood run cold. Brenda was sitting bolt upright on the bed, her face contorted as she practiced a facial droop. Tiffany stood opposite her, directing. A little more, Mom. Yeah, like that. That looks like a real stroke. Liam was by the window, his hand covering his face. He wasn't stopping them. He wasn't protesting. He knew. I felt like a knife had been plunged into my chest. I shoved the door open. The loud bang made all 3 of them jump. The charade was over. Brenda shrieked. Oh my God! Anna, what are you doing? I strode into the room, my eyes fixed on her. A stroke? Huh? Are you rehearsing for a play? Tiffany's face went pale. She stammered. You? You were eavesdropping? I laughed coldly. I didn't need to eavesdrop. The way you two are performing, anyone in the hallway could hear you. Brenda immediately flopped back onto the bed, drooping her mouth just as she had practiced, and started moaning. Oh, the pain. It hurts so much. I spoke in a flat, emotionless voice. You can stop the act, Brenda. The hallway security cameras recorded everything. I'll be requesting the footage. The room fell silent. Liam rushed over and grabbed my hand, his voice trembling. Anna, don't make a scene, I'm begging you. Mom was she just wanted. I pulled my hand away. Wanted what? For me to feel sorry for her? For me to soften up and let you all stay in my house? For me to get on my knees and apologize for something I didn't do? To my shock, Liam actually dropped to his knees in front of me. It was a scene I thought only existed in movies. He was kneeling, not out of shame, but to protect his interests. Anna, I'm begging you. Mom was just scared he would really kick her out. She's old. You have to understand. I promise we'll clean up. I promise I'll talk to her. Tell her to be nicer to you. Please, just don't escalate this. I stood tall, looking down at him, as if he were a stranger. I asked one question, very slowly. Did you know she was faking it? Liam bowed his head. I pressed him, my voice hard. Yes or no? He swallowed, then nodded. I felt as if all the shattered pieces of my heart were just hit with a sledgehammer. I pulled the separate property agreement from my purse. The hospital lights glinted off the paper, making it look as sharp as a blade. I held it out in front of him. This is the agreement you signed before our wedding. The property is mine alone. No one has any right to contest it. Liam looked up, his face ashen. Who gave you that? I replied, my voice steady. My father, the only one who hasn't lied to me. I then took out the promissory note. You signed this, too. A $30,000 debt to my father. If you engage in acts of disrespect, appropriation of assets, or deceit, you have to pay it all back. Tiffany stood frozen like a statue. Brenda sat bolt upright, forgetting all about her drooping mouth. What paper? I forbid him from signing anything. I looked straight at her. You don't have to. Liam already signed it. It's notarized and on file with my lawyer. Brenda's face turned ghostly white. Tiffany started backing towards the door, muttering, We're done for. We're done for. Liam, still on his knees, choked out. Anna, I was wrong. I'm so sorry. Please, don't take this to court. I'm afraid of your father. I'm afraid of losing you. I clenched my fists so hard, my nails dug into my palms. If you were afraid of losing me, you wouldn't have sided with your mother against me. If you were afraid of hurting me, you wouldn't have let them take over my home. I turned and said one last thing before leaving the room. I'm not losing a husband. I'm just getting rid of a trap. Then I walked away, leaving 3 panicked people in a hospital room. That was the first time I saw them afraid of me. And I knew, from that moment on, the game had officially changed. I left the hospital feeling emotionally numb, as if I had just walked through the eye of a hurricane. My body felt light, but my heart was heavy with a strange new resolve. It wasn't pain or hurt anymore, but a cold, clear-headed determination. I knew it was time to cut the cord, not out of anger, but to preserve what little dignity I had left. I took a cab to my parents' house. The moment I walked in, my father stood up. Seeing my face, he didn't ask any questions. He just placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "You're home? That's all that matters." I bit my lip to keep from crying. My mother rushed over and hugged me tightly, her voice trembling. "My poor girl, you've been through enough. Don't you ever go back to that place." I nodded, without a shred of hesitation. "I won't." My father glanced at my mother, then turned to me. "Go take a shower and rest for a bit. Then come down to my office. We need to talk." An hour later, I was sitting in my father's study, the warm lamplight illuminating his face. He placed a stack of documents on the desk and pushed them toward me. "David Kwong, our lawyer, will be here in 10 minutes. I looked at my dad, my eyes stinging. "Dad, I'm afraid I'm making too big of a deal out of this." My father gave a small smile, but his eyes were serious. "You're not making a big deal out of it. You're doing the right thing. We bought you a $3 million home, so you would have a place of peace and security. No one has the right to take that from you, and no one has the right to insult you in your own home." I bowed my head. "I understand, Dad." Just then, the door opened, and David Kwong walked in. He was tall and lean, with glasses and a calm but sharp demeanor. He greeted me with a firm voice. "Anna, your father has told me everything. We need to act now, before they have time to react." I nodded firmly. "Please, help me." The 3 of us sat down and began to prepare the case. The separate property agreement, the promissory note, bank statements, and the security footage from the hallway showing Brenda and Tiffany moving their things in 3 days prior. Everything was compiled into a thick file. David Kwong explained clearly. "With this evidence, you have the full legal right to demand they vacate the premises immediately. If they refuse, we can proceed with a formal eviction." My father crossed his arms and nodded. "Do it, David. Don't let them have one more day of satisfaction." I bit my lip, but for the first time in days, I felt a sense of relief. David prepared the official notice, stamped it, and gave it to my father. Within hours, the formal document was sent to the condo's management office, and the building's security team was notified. The notice was blunt. The unauthorized occupants currently residing in Unit 20 must vacate the premises within 24 hours of receiving this notice. Any resistance will be handled in accordance with the law. I stared at those words and took a deep breath. This was the first step in taking back my life. The next day, when the building manager delivered the notice directly to the apartment door, Brenda nearly exploded. Her screams echoed down the hallway. "Who gives you the right to evict me? I'm her mother-in-law. I have a right to be here. How dare you? You touch me, and you'll see." She even grabbed a broom and waved it at the security guard. Neighbors peeked out of their doors, whispering and gossiping. Tiffany was crying and screaming. "This house belongs to my brother. You can't kick us out." But the management team remained calm. According to the residency registration, only Anna Hayes and Liam Miller are listed as occupants. Anyone not approved by the primary homeowner does not have the right to reside here. Brenda unleashed a torrent of curses. "That ungrateful witch. She's suing me. She wants to throw me out on the street. God, how could anyone be so cruel?" The building staff held their ground. "If your family does not vacate within 24 hours, we will proceed with a forced eviction as per building regulations. This is no longer a family matter. This is the law." Tiffany kicked the wall in frustration, yelling, "I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying here." A neighbor scoffed audibly. "Are you staying at a charity shelter? Why are you shouting?" Liam just stood there, frozen, his face pale. He had tried to call me over a dozen times, but I had turned off my phone. He sent me novel-length text messages, begging me to give his mother more time. But I was no longer the soft-hearted woman he knew. At my parents' house, I watched the messages pop up on my screen. My hands no longer shook. My heart no longer ached. I knew I was doing the right thing for my life. I sent back a single, short message. You have 24 hours. My patience has run out. Then I turned my phone off again. That evening, Brenda caused another scene. She ran down to the lobby, clutching her chest and wailing as if she were the most wronged person in the world. But the building's security, now under direct orders from management and David Kwong, offered no sympathy. A few residents watched, some shaking their heads, others whispering. One older man said, just loud enough for her to hear, "You reap what you sow." The girl is kind, not stupid. This only made Brenda scream louder, while Tiffany sat on the floor, sobbing hysterically. Liam stood between them, looking utterly hopeless and pathetic. But there was no one he could call for help, no one left on his side. For the first time, the weakness of their position was fully exposed, and I sat in my parents' home, slowly sipping a cup of hot tea. I knew that with just one more step, my life would turn a new page completely. And for the first time, after days of sinking in mud, I felt like I could finally breathe. I thought forcing Liam's family out of the $3 million condo within 24 hours was my final, decisive blow. But it turned out that fate had an even sharper knife to hand me, not for revenge, but to cleanly sever every dirty rope they had tied around my life. That knife's name was Hannah. The next afternoon, while I was at my parents' house reviewing the file David Kwong had sent over, the doorbell rang. My mother answered it, and a few seconds later, called out to me, "Anna, there's a young woman here to see you. She looks very troubled." I walked to the door and stopped in my tracks. Standing on the porch was a thin, weary-looking woman, maybe in her late 20s. In her arms, she held a little boy of about 3, with curly hair and big, sad eyes. Both were dressed in old but clean clothes. What struck me most was the woman's eyes red-rimmed with desperation, yet still holding on to a final shred of dignity. She looked at me and bowed her head slightly. Are you Anna Hayes?" I nodded. "Yes. Can I help you?" She clutched the child tighter, her lip trembling. "My name is Hannah. I'm from West Virginia. I'm Liam's wife." The air around me seemed to thicken, making it hard to breathe. I stood frozen, my ears ringing for a long moment. I struggled to keep my composure. "What do you mean?" Hannah bit her lip, then opened the small cloth bag she was carrying. She pulled out a stack of crumpled papers, still legible. A photocopied marriage license, a few money transfer receipts, and several photos of her and Liam in front of a small country house. I didn't want to believe my eyes, but the evidence was undeniable. Hannah continued, her voice choked with tears. I didn't know he married you. I only knew that after our son, Leo, turned 2, he started visiting West Virginia less and less. At first, he still sent money and video called Leo. But for the past year, he just stopped. He wouldn't answer my calls or texts. The day his number was disconnected, I knew he had abandoned us. A chill ran down my spine. My hand started to shake. I looked down at the little boy, who was staring at me with a bewildered expression, the innocent eyes of a child who had done nothing wrong. My mother, standing beside me, was pale with shock. Hannah grabbed my hand, like a drowning person clinging to a life raft. "I only found you because someone told me you were his legal wife now. I don't mean to cause trouble, I promise. I'm just at the end of my rope. I've been working odd jobs to pay for diapers and Leo's medicine, and he won't even see his own son." My heart ached so intensely I could barely breathe. It was a mix of pain and the horrifying clarity of seeing the final piece of Liam's character fall into place. A man who could deceive me, I knew, but I had thought, perhaps, he had some compassion for others. It turned out he deceived everyone. I asked quietly, "What do you want from me?" Hannah gritted her teeth, tears streaming down her face. "I want you to help me get justice. Not for me, but for my son. I can endure hardship, but my son needs his father to acknowledge him. I don't want him living a life of luxury with you, while my son is abandoned like he's nothing." Her words pierced my heart. I pulled out a chair and invited her inside. My mother brought Hannah a glass of water. The little boy, Leo, hid behind his mother's legs, so quiet and scared it was heartbreaking. Once seated, Hannah pulled out another paper from her bag. A bank statement showing monthly transfers from Liam over a long period, with a memo line clearly marked child support. Looking at it, I knew. This was irrefutable proof that Liam not only had an affair, he had a child he had deliberately abandoned. I took a deep breath and collected all the documents. Leave all of this with me. I'll take care of it. Hannah's face lit up with gratitude. Thank you. Oh, thank you so much. I looked at her, then at her son. They were thin and worn down by hardship, but they represented one unchangeable thing: the truth that Liam had tried to bury. The truth that would bring about his complete and utter downfall. When David Kwong arrived, I handed him all the new documents. He examined each page, his expression growing more and more grim. Hannah sat quietly in the corner of the room, her hand clutching her son's. David nodded slowly. Anna, this is the missing piece. With this, Liam is not just in breach of the separate property agreement. He has committed fraud, violated bigamy laws, and criminally neglected his duty as a father. I asked immediately, so, what's the next step? We will add all of this to the lawsuit. We will also notify his employer and demand a paternity test if necessary. With your consent, this will be the final blow that takes him down completely. I sat up straight. I was no longer trembling. I saw the path forward clearly, not for revenge, but to protect myself, to protect my parents who had done so much for me, and to protect the innocent child sitting beside me. I said, my voice clear and steady, do it. Hannah looked up, her eyes shining with unshed tears. I'm so indebted to you. I shook my head. It's not a debt. It's what's right. And you deserve to be treated better than this. That was the first time in days I felt a true sense of peace. Not because Liam was about to fall, but because I knew, from this point on, I was no longer a passive victim in my own life. I was fighting back, and Liam would have no ground left to stand on. The eviction took place at high noon, the sun beating down on the marble floors of the condo lobby so brightly it was blinding. I wasn't there, but the building's security guards, my downstairs neighbors, and even the property manager sent me a series of videos. Watching them, I felt a shiver run down my spine, not out of glee, but because of the stark clarity of it all. What goes around, comes around. The condo that was once my home was now being entered by an eviction team. The three of them were still there, their belongings strewn about, just as they were on the day they took over. The head of security said that upon seeing them, the eviction officer announced, "This family is residing here illegally. You are ordered to vacate the premises immediately." Brenda charged forward, her voice louder than a megaphone. "Who do you think you are, kicking me out? This is my son's house. He owns half of it." But this time, no one paid her any mind. The building manager presented the separate property agreement, the official deed, and the court-ordered eviction notice, all notarized and legally binding. It stated in no uncertain terms, the sole legal homeowner is Anna Hayes. All other occupants residing without the homeowner's consent must vacate. Tiffany was frantically stuffing clothes into a backpack, her face ashen. She turned to Liam, her voice trembling on the verge of tears. "Liam, what do we do? Are they really kicking us out?" Liam stood frozen. He had called and texted me countless times that morning, but I hadn't replied. Not to torment him, but because there was simply nothing left to say. A security guard gently tapped his arm. "Sir, you need to sign this, confirming you are vacating the premises as an unauthorized occupant." Liam stared at the paper, his face drained of all color. In the video, I could see him shaking as he mumbled, Anna, please, help me. I was wrong, but I was no longer there to be his lifeline." The moment they were escorted down to the lobby, the entire building seemed to turn out to watch. Doors were cracked open. Residents craned their necks. Some filmed with their phones, others shook their heads, and a few spoke their minds. Knew it. You could tell just by looking at the mother and daughter what kind of people they were. Serves them right for being so greedy. Brenda went into a rage, screaming every curse imaginable. "Anna, I curse you. I will haunt you for this." But in the end, she still had to drag her suitcase out of the building under the harsh midday sun. I thought that would be the end of it, but karma works faster than you think. While Brenda and Tiffany were struggling to find a cheap motel, Liam was facing something far worse than losing a home. My father's company, where Liam had been a marketing associate, suddenly filed a lawsuit against him for corporate espionage and theft of client data. It turned out that before our wedding, Liam had tried to steal the company's VIP client list to sell to a competitor. When he was caught and thwarted, he had the audacity to try and blackmail my father, demanding $1 million for his silence. My father had quietly held onto the evidence for my sake. But after everything Liam's family had done, he said something I'll never forget. People must be held accountable for their choices. I was protecting you, but he must face the consequences of his actions. When the lawsuit was filed, the news sent shockwaves through the industry. Liam was brought in for questioning. The images of him being escorted into a conference room by corporate security didn't make me feel happy, but relieved. The mask had finally, definitively, fallen off. Not only that, but Liam's bank accounts were frozen as part of the investigation. He was left with only a few $100s, not even enough to cover a week's rent. As for Tiffany, I never imagined her downfall would be so swift. Her rich boyfriend, the one she constantly bragged about, found out her family had been evicted and immediately blocked her number and all her social media accounts without a word of explanation. She was seen crying outside his office building before being asked to leave by security. A few of her acquaintances later said she had spent all her savings. The designer clothes she borrowed from boutiques couldn't be returned or paid for. She was, quite literally, left with nothing. The same person who had mocked me, who said I had no voice in my own home, was now the one being slapped down by life. Liam's family, all three of them, were now scattered and broken. Brenda was in a damp, run-down motel room on the outskirts of the city, constantly fighting with her neighbors. Tiffany was fired from a retail job for her entitled attitude. Liam was under investigation, his reputation destroyed, his income gone, and with no hope of salvaging his future. All because of one word: greed. Greed for my home, for my money, for the kindness they mistook for weakness, and for the love I had given him. In the end, they lost far more than they ever tried to take. I sat by the window in my parents' house, watching the sunset paint the sky. There was no hatred left in me, only my father's words echoing in my mind. Justice always comes. It's just a matter of when. And that day, I saw it with my own eyes. Everything happened so fast it was almost dizzying. A week after being evicted, Liam, the man who once held my hand and promised me a lifetime, was arrested by federal agents at a cheap motel as he was preparing to flee the country. My father was the first to get the news. He said only one thing: heaven's net is wide, but its mesh is fine. There's nowhere for him to run. When I heard, I felt neither joy nor sadness. It was as if a dusty, old chapter of my life had finally been closed. The day I learned of Liam's arrest, I was at home with my mother. A light rain was falling outside, and the wind made the white curtains dance. My mother came into my room, phone in hand. "Anna, he's been arrested." I looked at her, feeling a strange sense of detachment, like I was watching a scene from my past fall off a cliff. The pain was gone, replaced by a profound sense of lightness. My mother sat beside me. He was caught trying to buy a bus ticket to the border. They found the burner phone he used to contact the data brokers and a stack of illegal loan agreements. I was silent. My mother took my hand. "You've been through enough. Let the law handle it now." The trial began 3 months later. It became a minor media sensation, a textbook case of a new kind of fraud: corporate espionage, blackmail, and a con artist marriage. The courtroom was packed. I chose a seat in the back row, my hands clasped in my lap, feeling strangely calm. When Liam was let in, he was pale and gaunt, his hair greasy. When his eyes met mine, he froze. The look that was once pleading and sweet was now filled with panic and regret. The prosecutor read out the charges: fraud, conspiracy to commit data theft, extortion, bigamy, and felony child abandonment. I looked down at my hands, my heart an empty space. The man who once slept beside me every night was now a defendant at the bar. The judge delivered the sentence: 15 to 20 years in federal prison. A murmur went through the courtroom. Liam collapsed into his chair, his shoulders shaking, but he didn't dare cry out. He looked at me, his lips forming the words: "Anna, I'm sorry." I didn't respond. I held no grudge against him, but every bond that had once tied me to him was gone. The sentencing for Brenda and Tiffany was quicker. Brenda was charged as an accessory for conspiring to seize property, but due to her age and clean record, she received a suspended sentence and probation. She was confined to the state and ordered to repay a portion of the eviction costs. Tiffany, the girl who had lounged on my master bed, trying on designer clothes, was found guilty of property damage and obstructing justice. The court sentenced her to 200 hours of community service and ordered her to pay full restitution for everything she had destroyed in my home. Hearing the verdict, Tiffany burst into tears. Brenda hung her head, her messy hair hiding her desolate face. The family that had once tried to stand on top of me was now shattered. All for greed. When the trial ended, David Kwong approached me with a file. "Anna, you now have full and uncontested ownership of the condo. No one can ever interfere again." I nodded, feeling a rusty lock in my heart finally click open. Stepping out of the courthouse, the afternoon sun felt warm on my face. I could hear the whispers from the crowd. Serves them right. No wonder the daughter-in-law kicked them out. She was kind, not stupid. They were just too greedy, and now they've paid the price. I heard it all, but I didn't care. It wasn't about winning against them. It was about winning back myself, conquering my own weakness, my blind tolerance, my misplaced trust. When I got into my father's car, he looked at me, his eyes gentle but full of pride. "From now on, you live your life. For you. No one gets to trample on you ever again." I smiled, a genuine, light smile, unburdened by the past. Justice had been served, and my life had truly turned a new page. A year has passed, so quickly that I sometimes catch myself by surprise, not recognizing how much I've changed. I once thought the pain Liam and his family inflicted would leave me cautious and afraid. But it turns out that when you walk through the darkest part of your life, what's left on the other side is as light as air. The $3 million condo, once my battlefield, is now a completely different space. I renovated it myself, changing the curtains, knocking down a non-essential wall, and repainting everything in a warm, sun-drenched cream. The kitchen is now an open, inviting space where I make hot chocolate on cool evenings. The master bedroom is exactly as I had always dreamed, minimalist, elegant, and so clean that not a single shadow of the past remains. I stand in my home each morning, watching the sun stream through the windows, and feel an incredible sense of peace. The place that was once occupied is now my fortress. No one can enter without my permission, no one can trample on my spirit, and no one can ever again say, "This isn't your house." I won it back by winning myself back. My career as an interior designer has also transformed. After the ordeal, I threw myself into my work. Perhaps because of the trauma, I developed a deeper understanding of how a living space can impact a person's psyche. My designs from that year were all praised by clients for having a soul, a healing quality. Through my work, I've built new, healthy relationships, not romantic ones, but friendships with good, kind people who remind me that the world is still beautiful. Hannah, the woman who once stood trembling on my doorstep with her child, is now a part of my life in a different way. I visit her and Leo every few months. Leo is now almost 4, a healthy, bright little boy. He has Liam's eyes, which at first was a painful reminder, but I've come to realize that a child is not his father's sins. I help Hannah with Leo's preschool tuition, not because I'm taking on another's responsibility, but because children don't choose their parents, but we as adults can choose to protect them. Once, Hannah held my hand tightly, her eyes welling up. "Anna, if you had turned me away that day, I don't think we would have made it. I'll be grateful to you for the rest of my life." I just shook my head. It's not about gratitude. It's about doing what's right. It's as simple as that. My life no longer has any connection to Liam or his family. They are serving their sentences, facing their consequences, and have vanished from my life like a bad dream. If anyone asks if I hate them, I just smile. I don't, because hatred would keep me chained to the past. I am only grateful. Because of them, I learned how to stand up. One evening, I stepped out onto my balcony. A gentle breeze blew, and the setting sun cast a warm, golden glow on the city. I placed my hands on the railing, looking down at the world below, and I thought to myself, if I hadn't stood up that day, I might have spent the rest of my life as a stranger in my own home. That thought sends a shiver down my spine whenever I remember it, not a fear of the past, but a fear of the version of myself that might have chosen silence. I leaned my head against the cool glass of the door, closed my eyes, and silently posed a question to you, the one following my story. If one day you came home and discovered it no longer belonged to you, what would you do? Would you suffer in silence, or would you stand up and reclaim the space that is rightfully yours? Life always gives us two choices: give up or move forward. I chose to move forward, even when my feet were bleeding. And I hope that anyone going through their own dark times remembers this. No one has the right to define your worth. No one has the right to trample on your dignity. You deserve a home that is peaceful, pure, and truly your own. Thank you for following this story to the very end. If you want to hear more stories of life, resilience, and the strength of the human spirit, Please support our channel so we can continue to bring you stories that touch the heart.